Good morning, everybody. You are listening to K-Talk Radio 1640 AM. This is the show Utah Home Sweet Home. I am your host, Yoshi Shiraki, and today our very special guest is none other than John Madsen. For those of you who know John Madsen, he was an Oakland Raider. He is an entrepreneur. He's out there killing it. He's killed it before. He played for the University of Utah. John, thank you so very much for joining me today. I really appreciate you sharing on my show. Okay. Oh. Yes, no, thank you, thank you. I really appreciate it. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, I hear you, man.
Okay, perfect, perfect. So, John, you know, I've had the privilege to train under you when you were here still in Salt Lake City. And I'm super happy that you are out in Arizona doing what you're doing and killing it. But I was sad to know that I'll probably never get to be trained by John Madsen again.
Yeah, dude. Well, you could. I'm telling you. Since my daughter was born 2.5 years ago,
yes.
That was the end of my in-person training, I guess decade almost. It was something that I was super passionate about, owned a couple gyms, you know, had some sales businesses in there too. But what was constant was my quest for trying to master as much as I could the human body and performance, and I loved it. I trained 1,000 people, well over 1,000 people, and you were one that I'd never forget. But when my daughter was born, man, I was the guy who was waking up at 4 in the morning and going home at 8 at night, and I knew that lifestyle was going to be, you know, pretty difficult to do what I wanted to do and be the dad that I wanted to be. And so I transitioned my business all to 100% online pretty quickly after my baby was born. So, you know, I don't do any in-person stuff anymore, so you're not the only one.
Okay, well, I don't feel so bad now. Awesome, that is so cool. That is so cool. So, do you mind sharing, because I know a little bit about your backstory, which is absolutely incredible, that it's unheard of to hear that somebody doesn't play high school ball at a particular sport and then goes to the NFL or the NBA, or in your case the NFL, whatever it is. You didn't even play high school football, yet you start football in college, which is amazing right there. And then you go to the NFL. Do you mind sharing a little bit about your backstory on how you became a professional NFL player without even playing high school football?
Yeah, man. And this kind of percolates into everything that I'm kind of pursuing now, which is how, you know, I'm doing that story from a different perspective and saying, man, how did I make that happen? Right?
Yeah.
And, you know, going back to the time I was 5 years old, playing sports, my dad was a coach in a lot of them. I played tennis. My mom was a coach in tennis. And so I was playing basketball, baseball, Little League football, Little League tennis. And all the way through, all that I ever wanted to do was be an athlete. Like, that was the dream. And so it didn't matter that I grew up in Salt Lake City and there would be snow on the driveways. I would literally go and knock on my neighbor's door because we didn't have a basketball hoop. And I would ask them if I could shovel their driveway so that I could go out and shoot hoops. And they'd look at me like I'm crazy because it's a blizzard outside.
Right.
I remember vividly. Didn't matter the sport. I'd almost play and practice. And I call it deep practice, where I'd be visualizing that I was, you know, Michael Jordan or Larry Bird or Jerry Rice.
Yes,
right? And I'd be practicing and, like, in my own mind. And, you know, that's important. That's an important part in manifestation and power of intention. I truly believed that I was going to be a professional athlete. I didn't know that it was going to be, you know, me playing in Wimbledon, me playing in the NFL or the NBA or Major League Baseball. I literally didn't care because I liked all sports pretty equally at that time.
Right.
When I got to high school, I went into the weight room for the first time because that was the first time, you know, we were required to lift weights for sport. And up to that point, I viewed myself as one of the better athletes out of all of my friends, I was always on the all-star team. I was always, the first kid picked at recess.
Yeah.
And then I got into this weight room, and there were seniors there, and the coach was like, we're going to max on bench, squat, and deadlift. And I'm like, okay, well, I haven't really done any of them. Bench seems like it'd be something less dangerous than the other one.
Right.
So me and my friends, went to the little bench in the corner. We start warming up, and, my friends are still warming up. We got to the point where we put 225s on each side, and it crushes my chest.
Oh, no.
And in that moment, this realization that I wasn't strong, just shattered my confidence completely, and
Yeah.
as kids would do, they were teasing me and making fun of me.
Right.
But it was just I was really shaken inside, and I was like, I'm not playing football. Oh my God, all these kids are stronger than me. I'm going to get killed out there.
Right.
It was this weird realization all at once. And so I went home and I struggled with this decision for, a day or two. And then I was like, that's it. I'm not going to play football. I'm going to just tell my dad that I'm going to play basketball and baseball. And, I was worried about it because, I played a lot of Little League football from the time I was 8 until I was a freshman. And I was one of the better players on the team.
Yeah.
But I was just, in this growth spurt, I grew tall and was super thin. And, if that was a sophomore, as a junior, I probably went from a sophomore to junior, I probably went from 5'11" to 6'4" and didn't gain a single pound. So I was just, if you saw me in high school, people would be like, oh my God, you're tall, right?
Right.
Because I am tall, but now I have that, kind of, muscled out frame a little bit to equal out just like a beanpole frame. And so I was just I didn't even like that compliment because I'm they're insinuating that I'm tall and stick thin, which I was. But what that did, I had this appetite or this thirst, this desire that I was like, that's it, man. One day I'm going to be strong and I'm going to be powerful. I'm going to catch all my friends. And there was something kind of cool about me starting to work out and understanding that every day I was there and they were not, I was getting closer. Right?
Yes.
And so I started in physical fitness. I started to see my body change, even though it wasn't as fast as I would want. It was still I would go to the gym, I'd get sore, and I'd see a little bit of change. And it was I became addicted to that, which is why I fell in love with, strength and conditioning later on. I actually fell in love with it when I was 16 years old, right then.
Got it.
And I never got back to the football field. I gained 25 pounds. I went from being barely able to dunk a basketball to literally doing 360 dunks and stuff. So I thought my career was going to be in basketball, but I was a 6'4" and a half kid.
Yeah.
My advantage on the basketball court wasn't as big as, me being a wide receiver in football. So long story short, I never played high school football. I played basketball, I played baseball. Both teams were very crappy at my high school. I didn't get recruited. I had a couple small offers for, D3 basketball, and I'm like, I don't even know where these schools are. I don't really want to go.
Yeah.
And I ended up registering for, Snow College was the only school I really put my application in.
Got it.
And that was a small little junior college, an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes from Salt Lake City. All my friends went to Dixie, and I was like, God, I want to go to Dixie. He's like, no, you're going to Snow. And, so I went to Snow College, and I was like, well, I'm just going to try out for the basketball team, obviously.
Yeah.
But there was this moment where I was like, I went to this registration, and I had this VHS film, and I went to hand it to the basketball coach. I set up a meeting with him. And he said, John, look, I can't even look at your film, man. We have a roster that's 100% full. I'm going to have tryouts this year, and you're welcome to try out, but I'm not taking one walk-on this year because my roster is full. So as a coach, I'm just telling you, if you want to play basketball and continue your career,
yeah,
you're not going to be able to do it at Snow College, regardless of how good you are.
Oh.
And I was like, okay, well, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
And in that moment, I decided that, my dad was with me, my mom was with me, and they were like, what are you going to do? And I'm like, in my head, I had this voice, you're not done being an athlete. There's a lot more inside of you. And I'm like, let's go talk to the football coaches. I can play wide receiver. And my dad kind of looked at me like, this kid is, a little bit cuckoo bird. I'm like, I know I haven't played in in 3 years. But like I was athletic, man. Like I literally could run and jump. There was no question.
Yes.
And I could catch. I was very natural. And so I went and talked to the football coaches, and I was just like, hey, they're looking at me like, who are you? But I'm a 6'4" kid, about at that time probably 185, 190 pounds. And I'm like, I haven't played football since I was in 9th grade. However, I think I can play wide receiver. I just want a chance. Here's my basketball film. If you want to look at it, it'll show me dunking on people and stuff. And so they put it in. They're like, well, dude, you are athletic, and we have tryouts in 2 months. You're absolutely welcome to try out. There's probably going to be, 110 people at tryouts, and on our team with walk-ons and red shirts and everything, we'll probably carry a roster of, 80 people or so.
Yeah.
So if you make it, you make it. And I was like, dude, that's all I wanted is a shot. And so I took that shot. I made the team. After about 2 weeks of the tryouts, the coaches brought me in their office and was like, John, I know you think you're still going to play basketball, but with your ability in football, if you apply yourself and get stronger and get a little bigger and work on route running and the stuff that you need to work on, you literally can play for as long as you want. Like, you have that type of ability. And so I was like, oh man, dude, that dream of professional athlete is a little bit closer. So I did that. I focused all my attention on learning how to play football. I didn't know how to read a defense at that point. I didn't know anything.
Wow.
But I redshirted because I didn't know anything. But I just worked. I worked on that. I worked on my body. I transferred to the University of Utah, played for Urban Meyer, played for Alex Smith, and ultimately ended up, scoring a couple touchdowns in the NFL and living that childhood dream of becoming a professional athlete.
That's incredible. That's amazing. That is so, so cool. And a mutual friend we both have, Bo Nagahi, who's actually the guy who referred me to you back when he's who put us together. He's like, I got a really good buddy who can get you in shape, Yoshi. Bo used to tell me that you were just a natural athlete. He was like, John was just a freak of nature as far as athletics. And so it makes sense that, you could translate from one sport to the other naturally. It kind of just reminds me like a Bo Jackson or something. So that's really, really cool. So John, if you don't mind sharing then, what day, if you can recall, if it happened on a day, did you decide, okay, you're now playing for the University of Utah, I assume. What day did you decide NFL? You knew at a young age, it sounds like, you were going to play pro. You just didn't know it's sport. But what day was it that you're like, it's the NFL I'm going to be in?
Dude, I remember, like, the Fiesta Bowl year. And so the first year, so really funny, kind of segue into that. So the first year I transferred to Utah, and I don't want everyone to think that I just, it was so natural and it was so easy. I got to Utah and I didn't have a scholarship. Again, I walked on. So I still had another year to play at Snow.
Uh-huh.
And I was driving back home, and when you're in the moment, sometimes it's like, Ephraim sucks. There's nothing to do here. There's only one Subway and one McDonald's. Although I look back and I'm like, dude, that was some of the funnest times of my life.
Right.
But in it, I remember thinking like, I gotta get out of here, man. There's nothing but turkey farms over here. And if anybody's ever been to Ephraim, they know, right? And
right.
So I remember thinking like, I gotta get back to like some sort of normalcy and people. And I was driving back home, and I'm like, you know what? Like, I qualified out of high school. I got good grades. I don't need my associate's degree to transfer to Utah right now. And I was reading, my dad's like, you should check out the newspaper. There's this new guy named Urban Meyer. He's going to coach Utah, because I was a Utah fan. And he's like, he just came out and said that his receivers suck. And if they're going to win any games, they need receivers. And he basically blasted his own receivers in the paper. And so I'm like, I went to the gas station, got this paper. I'm like, yep. He says he has no receivers. So I'm like, I'm going to go talk to him. I'm a receiver. And so I literally unannounced, and I don't even know if this could happen, now. Like the facilities are more safeguarded now. Like the doors are locked, and I couldn't just walk in probably.
Right.
Well, back then, in 2001, or this was probably 2003, I walked in, and there was a coach that was in their facility, and he would turn out to be a GA, like a graduate assistant. And he's like, hey, can I help you? And I'm like, yeah, I play at Snow College, and I have one more year, but I am getting recruited pretty heavily by Stanford, and Stanford sucked, by the way, back then in football, and I wasn't, Mr. Academia. It was like, I'm not going to go play for Stanford and win a couple of games. Like, I want to go win, right?
Right.
I was getting phone calls from Stanford and a lot of other schools. So I was getting traction.
Gotcha.
So it wasn't out of nowhere that I thought I could play at Utah. Like, I had a box full of letters and coaches calling me, and most of them were saying, play one more year, we want to see what you can do, graduate with your associate. Where I'm like, I want to get out now. So anyways, I end up at Utah, and this coach is like, can I help you on that? And I'm trying to spit out this story. And he's like, hold on one second. And he then peeks his head into a conference room and says, hey, I got a 6'5" receiver out here that says he, wants to transfer here. And I had never met Urban, didn't know his personality, nothing. And literally 2 seconds later, Urban Meyer, who I came to know as Urban Meyer.
Yeah.
And the wide receiver coach pops out of the office, sits me into another office, and they're like, who are you? They just start grilling me. I play at Snow College, and, I can transfer now. Kansas State, might want me to leave in 2 weeks. They're deciding, and Stanford wants me to blah, blah, blah. And they're like, okay, well, do you have any film? And I'm like, yeah, I got this film. It only has a couple of football plays because I didn't really play a ton. However, it does have basketball stuff on there too, and they're looking at me like, this kid is crazy. So the film opens up with me doing a couple dunks like I showed the Snow coaches.
Yeah.
And then I had a couple knockout blocks at Snow College where I was a receiver just cracking back down on somebody.
Yeah.
And Urban just stopped the film. He's like, dude, if you block like that, you can play for me. And I'm like, well, I don't want to block. I really want to catch touchdowns, but whatever gets me in the door.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so he's like, we're going to do some homework on you. We're going to call your coaches and, figure out what the real story with you is. You never played high school football. I was trying to spit out this whole story that I just did with you guys. And they're trying to figure out, this is a pretty wild story. So a couple of weeks go by, and I'm in contact with the University of Utah. This is going into the summer, so where they were just finishing up spring ball. And then all at once, Urban's like, hey, can you come down to Utah this weekend? And I'm like, sure. So I meet him, and we're in his office. And he's just sitting there, and he looks at me, he's like, so do you want to be a University of Utah U? And I said, yeah, coach, that's obviously what I'm here for. And he just stands up and shakes my hand and says, congrats. Let's go in, I'm going to go show you down to the weight room, introduce you, get your stuff, and then you're going to be taken to enroll in classes. And I'm like, dude, I'm stoked. This is my
Oh my
school.
gosh.
I call my dad. I'm like, I'm going to Utah. And at the end of all that, he's like, awesome. Did he give you a scholarship? And I'm like, well, I assume those words weren't, spoken, but I don't know. But all I know is I'm enrolled in classes now, and this stuff is moving. I'll be here in 2 weeks to report the summer training. And so finally, my dad's like, well, John, we got to figure out how we're going to pay for school. If we have a scholarship or if we don't. And so I'm like, oh, dang it, I do not want to go talk to Urban again. He's intimidating, and I don't want to ask this question.
Right.
So I remember timidly knocking on his door, and he just stands there. His demeanor is always just looking right through you, and he's like, what's going on? And I said, well, Coach, I was just wondering, did we agree on a scholarship, or what was the deal? And he's like, look, John, you haven't played enough football for me to just hand you a scholarship, nor do I have one right now. But I do promise you this: if you play for me and you contribute, you will absolutely be rewarded with a scholarship. But right now, you're going to have to prove it to me and the school that you deserve it. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's it. No discussion.
Yeah.
I wanted to get out of that office fast. Right?
Right.
So I found myself, training for the upcoming season. I was a redshirt sophomore at that point. I didn't go through spring ball, so I was trying to learn the offense rapidly fast. We get into training camp, and in training camp, all the rookies had a piece of duct tape. They didn't have the U decals.
Yes.
Right, where the University decals, all the veterans had those, and all the rookies and new kids on the block had duct tape. and on the duct tape was our last names. And Urban said, one of his deals was like, look, there's an initiation into the University of Utah. You have to earn your decals. And so there's some of you that aren't going to earn them all year. If you weren't doing anything, then you might have duct tape for 4 years. I don't care. But like when you get that duct tape off, you're now officially a member of the University of Utah football family. And until you do, you're an outsider. And I'm like, okay, well, I got to get this thing off fast.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so literally after the first, I was the first one out of all the incoming freshmen and everybody. Like, I think it took me a day or two where I just was lights out at practice.
Yeah.
And they came up, and I was a walk-on too. So, they were scholarship guys with duct tape on for a year or two. And, I got mine removed. And so the point of that is, I was performing, well better than they thought I was going to.
Wow.
So week 2 comes, though, and, all of my, youthful energy and optimism started getting beat out of me when I was, messing up on the playbook. And then, because they were expecting more of me, everything became magnified. And so if I messed up, it was like I'm getting cussed at. And, the guys were bigger and stronger than at Snow College. And so I remember, one day getting just blasted in the ribs and thinking that my ribs were, completely broken.
Oh, no. Yes.
In doing so, I ran a slant over the middle and the ball popped out and I fumbled. And so one of the things we didn't do back then was fumble. So I can barely breathe. I'm laying on the ground and my coaching just reamed me for fumbling. And at the end of practice, when I finally made it through, I didn't make it through yet. I had to go do punishment for fumbling, which was holding 2 footballs, going back to the goal line, and every 5 yards doing an up down onto my elbows while the coaches were trying to smack the football out and just talking complete smack to me the whole way. It was August at that point, so those little rubber pellets on the ground were super hot.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
That field was 120 degrees.
Right.
And so I get to the 50-yard line, and I look down, and my elbows are both split open and blood dripping down, all over the place. And I'm like, dude, that's it, man. I'm quitting. I'm not doing this anymore.
Yeah.
And so, I almost make up my mind to quit right then and there because the second week got really hard.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I don't need to do this, man. Heck no. This is terrible. We're doing training camp. I'm up at 5 in the morning, going to bed at 10, and, all this stuff is unreal.
Yeah.
So I make up my mind when I finally got done. I'm like, that was the last day, man. Oh, and then they had this initiation where rookies had to, get up on the table and sing in front of, the cafeteria, whether it was girls volleyball and all types of stuff. And so, I got up there and I couldn't even remember my name. I was so, shy and scared back then. And, they were all laughing at me. And if they didn't like a song, then the singers would hold you down and shave your eyebrows and shave your head.
Oh, man.
And I was just like, dude, so this week just, piled on. So I got my hair shaved off. And I was just ribs felt like they were broken, went through this. I'm like, that's it, man. I'm going home. This is not worth it anymore.
Yeah.
And so I made up my mind. I packed all my bags, and I was just like, I'm telling Urban tonight that I'm quitting. I said goodbye to all my little buddies that I made. You guys won't see me anymore, man. Good luck. I'm over this.
Yeah.
And so Urban saw me. It was the last meeting that he usually runs, the nightly meeting. And he saw something on my face that night, and he's like, are you okay? And I was like, yeah, coach, I'm good. He's like, no, you're not. He looked at one of his assistants and said, take over this meeting, I got to go talk to John real fast. And so he brought me up into his office, and I had this speech, kind of recited in my brain. He's like, what's up? And I said, coach, I just want to thank you for your time and, believing in me, but I found that I don't love football, and I just want to thank you for the opportunity that I quit. Oh. And as I'm saying this, man, that dream is in your heart, but for whatever reason, I'm trying to turn away from it.
Yeah.
I had tears streaming down my face, and he's just looking at me, and he's like, sit down, John. And he just gave me one of the best speeches that I've ever had in a pivotal moment in my life. He started pointing to pictures of his family and his young daughter and son, and and Shelly, his wife. And he's like, John, I know you think this is hard. This isn't hard. There's going to be a lot of hard stuff. This is just this is hard now, and I understand it's probably harder than anything you've done. but if I let you quit right now, you're gonna be a quitter. And if you quit, quitting gets easier and easier in life. And so someday when you have your own family and something doesn't go the way that you want it to go, then chances are you're going to quit again. And I'm just like, dude, it just hit me, right? Because I didn't want to quit.
Right.
And then he called my dad right after and was like, I got your son in here and doing awesome. And I'm like, I couldn't say I quit in front of my dad. And so he just like, make me a promise and show up to practice tomorrow. And for the next week, man, I did not want to go to practice. I literally did not want to go to practice. I just made that promise to myself. I, at a certain point, talked to my dad and said, this isn't worth it. He's like, just play that first game. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to just play this first game. First game with Utah State. And I got garbage minutes. We were killing them. So in the fourth quarter, I got to go in. And there was, 40,000 people there, 50,000 people.
Yeah.
And my family's stoked. They're like, you got in. And I'm like, yeah, it was garbage minutes. That sucks. Like, I don't want garbage minutes. Right?
Right.
And so it's in this negative frame. And I'm like, that's it. My dad's like, well, he's like, the next game, Texas A&M, 100,000 people on ESPN. I'm like, he's like, if you want to quit after that game, you go ahead. But I would suggest you try to play that game. And I'm like, you're right. I'm going to play one more game. And so I practiced, and I'm just, trying to get through practice, man, without breaking down. I was so, stressed out.
Yeah.
And I was, second or third string. We get to Texas A&M, and I see all the tailgates for miles. And it's just a different level of college football.
Yeah.
We get to the stadium in September, so it's hot and humid in Texas. There's literally 100,000 people, the band's playing, the cheerleaders are walking through, and I'm like, holy shit, dude. Sorry, I didn't mean to cuss on the radio.
No, it's okay.
And I'm like, and I remember, looking at one of my buddies on the team, and I'm like, but dude, I would do all this a million times for this moment right here. I don't even need to get in the game. It's just warm up.
Right.
I'm like, this is college football.
Wow.
And so I'm just looking up in the stands, and I'm like, this is what I played for,
Yeah.
And so I was super stoked. Well, first quarter, the starter breaks his ribs. And I'm just sitting there, just in awe of the stadium. And I just, hear my name being screamed. And I'm like, oh, my God, I'm in the game.
Oh, my gosh.
So I throw on my helmet. I run in there. And for the next, 10 plays, I literally lined up wrong once. I'm, forgetting everything. I'm running around like a chicken with my head cut off. And I'm just, in awe. I feel like I'm almost going to throw up because I'm so nervous and everything's happening so fast. And we find ourselves down 21-0 at halftime. And I go in there and sweat's just pouring off my face. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm in this game right now.
Wow.
Holy crap.
Yeah.
And Urban comes darting into the halftime, and he's just ripping. He's so mad, dude.
Oh,
and
no.
he's mad at everybody, but he sees me, and he sees kind of a look in my eyes, I'm in disbelief.
Yeah.
And he goes on to give me one of the most demotivating and motivating speeches of my life. He's in front of everybody. He's like, John, there's 100,000 people out there and hundreds of thousands watching on TV, and not one of them cares that you're afraid right now.
Huh.
And he's like, and there's another 50 people in here that have poured their heart and soul into this university. And they don't care if you're, and he's swearing F-word, mother effing the whole time. And
Yeah.
They don't care if you're afraid, too. You're letting this university down. And I'm just like, dude.
Well,
my little buddy taps my little thigh and is like, it's okay, John, it's all good. And I'm like, no, dude, I got to go see if Steve is okay because I don't want to go back out there. So I'm going in the training room and I'm like, Steve the boy was a star back then. And I'm like, Steve, bro, are you okay? And he's like, no, dude, my ribs are broken. And I'm like, oh no, dude, I got to go back out there.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, have this realization that I'm not going to get saved,
Yeah.
And so, anyways, we go down 28-0, but then we go on this monstrous comeback. And we're just going 2-minute drill, no huddle, and just marching the ball down the field. My first catch is a 30-yard bomb on 4th and 15. And I'm like, finally the game slows down. And then with 8 seconds left, we're down 28-20, and we're on our own 40. And we have maybe 2 plays left. Quarterback rolls out, and I just running straight down the field. I find myself wide open somehow. And quarterback throws this ball, and it's just fluttering in the sky. I have no one around me. I catch the ball in the end zone, and with 0 time on the clock. And that was 28 to 26, we have one play to tie it up.
Oh, man.
And we ended up not getting that 2-point conversion, but afterwards, my first real experience, I have 2 catches for like 93 or 95 yards and a touchdown.
Wow.
And I'm on every news station in the state nonstop because they're like, you never played high school football, and my phone's like blowing up out of the game. Right?
Right.
And so like that was one of my favorite moments, you know, and like that led me to go on and, you know, I didn't do much that sophomore year, but we went 10-2, and that was the start of Alex Smith's journey. And then the next year was a Fiesta Bowl year. So to answer your really long-winded answer to your question, when did I know?
Yeah.
The Fiesta Bowl the next year, I scored a touchdown, and I was a starter on that squad, and we were ranked 4th in the nation. And about a week after that game, I got my first call from an NFL agent.
Wow.
And then I got, like, every single day after. I remember where I was. I remember, you know, sitting in front of my house, then having, like, 100 agents call every day and just saying, like, hey, you know, we got to sign you. And so it happened really fast.
Amazing. Amazing. Wow. That's intense. That is intense. That is such a cool story. I did not know any of that. I was literally like, right, as you were telling that story, like my mind was literally visualizing you in the end zone, the ball in the air, and just like, I'm hoping you're telling me that you're going to catch it. Catch it, John. Please catch it.
It was the longest I've ever seen a ball flutter like that in my life. I'm like, just come down already.
Yeah. So cool. So cool. Wow, that's incredible. So now let's fast forward to today, where you're now an entrepreneur who's out there killing it. And before, really quickly here, for those of you, where can people follow you, John? Because I follow you, obviously, and you share so many great tips, nuggets, whatever you want to call it. Where can people follow you who are listening right now?
Yeah, on Instagram, I'm probably most active at John Madsen Official.
Okay.
Or my website, johnmadsen.com would probably be the easiest.
Okay.
johnmadsen.com, I have a podcast called The Show. There's probably 150 episodes where I share a lot of this stuff. And you could, if you go to johnmadsen.com, you could subscribe and also find me on socials there too. So that's probably the easiest.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. Excellent. So now let's fast forward to where we are today, and you're now killing as an entrepreneur. You played in the NFL, and can you tell us a little bit about what it is that you do right now? So you'd mentioned earlier you'd gone virtual. There was a time when obviously you were there in person. Can you share a little bit about what you do for people right now?
Yeah, so I created a coaching program. It's called the Athletic AF. That was the last branded gym that I had, Athletic AF. Really, you know, it stands for what it stands for, but the real name is Athletic and Fit. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, just kind of a play on logo. Yeah. And so I created this project called the Athletic AF CEO Project for entrepreneurs or for people who are busy professionals who really have, you know, they have that drive, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not taking people off the couch that are eating potato chips that don't care. I'm meeting people where they're like, dude, I'm already putting in effort into the gym. I'm going to these classes. I'm trying to eat healthy, but I look in the mirror, John, and I just can't ever like get, I don't know if it's my body or my genetics or what it is, but I'm like, I still look pretty average. Yeah. But I want to dial this in so that when I take vacations with my family and wife, like, you know, people are like, whoa. And I'm like, whoa to myself. Right. So I created this little transformation program where we do, you know, training and nutrition, but more importantly, and probably, you know, a lot of people can do that. What I do is help people connect their mind and their heart to the fact that we are going to get this transformation. And probably what I'm most proud of is we set goals. Yep. Right? We set goals and we have this goal, but what I help these people do is understand that it's not about the goal. When we hit that goal, we got to turn that into a new standard for ourselves. And so that's where I really have created this culture of like people who are just winning in fitness. And I coach people virtually all over the world. And so, you know, I meet them, a prospect, thinking that they need to get in shape. Yeah. And I think I help them transform and let that transformation take over other aspects of their life too, which is what I'm mostly interested in is, you know, changing a person's mind, changing a person's body.
Yes. Gotcha. And let's dive into that. I love that. So mindset, I'm a huge believer that mindset's like a muscle. If you're not working it out, it doesn't get strong, right? And I am a firm believer of somebody who constantly works out their mindset. I know you've got a strong mindset just based off of me following you on social media. What do you do personally to keep your mindset strong and to make it stronger?
Yeah, well, a couple things, man. Like, number one, I'm always investing in mentorship. Always. One of the things, I think people do is they want to know what stock to buy, or, they want to set themselves up for retirement, which is good and fine. For me, I really want to play a lot of offense financially.
Yeah.
Meaning, yes, I don't want to be buried in debt. Yes, I want to make smart choices, but I also don't want to be driving down the road with one foot on the brake, one foot on the gas.
Right.
So for me, what I realize is, I'm going to invest an exuberant amount of money into myself. And that's where, instead of buying stocks or, worrying about retirement, right now, I'm literally going to put all my money in myself. And what I realized was that I wasn't getting the mentor money. I was literally writing a check and he would put it in his bank account, yes. But what I was doing was depositing that into myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went on this journey of just growing and, like a sponge, just, I wanted to know the secrets of life, right? I wanted to master manifestation. I wanted to master intention. Me ending up in the NFL was not an accident. That was in my realm of possibility from the time that I believed it, right?
Right.
And so I knew that, but I was in my business life, I was how do I always tap into that? And the only way I knew, because sometimes I would do it, sometimes I wouldn't, is I need to find these people who are living the way that I want to live. And so, long story short, one of the best things that I do is I seek out people who I believe have something to teach me, and I'll pay them for mentorship. And then on top of that, I'm constantly reading, right? I'm constantly reading stuff about quantum physics and the law of attraction, and reading stuff by Bob Proctor and Napoleon Hill, and all that stuff that I just continuously feed my mind and feed my brain. And then one of the other most powerful things that I've done is, sometimes I guess I kind of made the shift recently where, I was seeking outside knowledge, which is awesome, but then I started to realize how many of those answers I already had within.
Right.
Right? And so then meditation, getting quiet, and then journaling, right? When you put pen to paper and you're bam, oh my God, I just had a breakthrough and I did it on myself. So those are probably the things: mentorship, little bit of meditation, nothing, monk style, but 15 to 20 minutes a day. Journaling, thoughts, and trying to find that inner knowledge and inner voice that I do have, and, constantly reading stuff that inspires me and studying other people.
That is awesome. What, if you don't mind me asking, John, thank you for sharing all of that. I'm curious to know what John Madson's goals are. Obviously, you have grown dramatically since, you talking about shoveling the snow off of the driveway to where you are today. It's this constant growth that is inspiring, right? You've never plateaued. You just keep going up. And what are your goals today? Where's John Madson shooting for today? And I'm sure once you hit that, you'll have another one after that. But what is it today?
Yeah, no, good question, man. Interesting. So let's talk about some of the things that I do too. One of the mentors that I hired, this is a cool story, man. One of the mentors that I hired last year kind of changed my life. One of the exercises he had me do is John, that sounds crazy, but I need to, at the root of everybody's problem is they don't really know what they want. And they know what they don't want, but they don't know what they want. Right. And by focusing on what they don't want, they get precisely that, what they don't want. Where focus goes, energy flows. I'm I've heard that in books a million times.
Yeah.
He's what I want you to do is, I want you to write a list of 100 material things that you want. I don't care, that you think that, I want you to start listening to that voice when you write Bugatti down on a piece of paper that says, dude, you don't need that. You're happy with, your truck. Right? Because it's this mechanism of you don't need that that's been taught to us. Right? He's I want to remove that. So you have my permission to write down 100 material things that you want. And then I want you to write down 100 experiences too. but you have to get 100 and you have to turn it into me. And I paid this guy a lot of money. So I'm like, okay, I'll do it. And so, funnily, any of you listeners that do this, I highly recommend doing it. You get to like 15 and you're like, dude, I don't need anything else.
Right.
Like, what do you need? Like, I put this, I got a couple cars and this, and I'm like, I had to really force myself to get 100. I thought I was going to do it in 15 minutes, and I found myself for like 4 hours Googling stuff that I didn't know that I wanted.
Right.
So, anyways, I put the Scottsdale home on there. And it was like, I had 10 homes, and I'm like, I want a Scottsdale home, I want a Laguna Beach home. And I never mentioned Scottsdale to my wife. I just like Scottsdale.
Yeah.
And I like the hot weather. And so, that was probably, that was 6 months before all this, what I'm about going to tell you next, transpired.
Yeah.
It's April of 2020, when the pandemic is kind of full force, COVID. And in Utah, it's still cold. And so me and my wife and baby are locked up in this house, and we're just like, man, it's so cold, like we can't even go outside. And it's Easter, and Easter last year was at the end of April, and I remember waking up in my house with there was snow on the ground.
Yeah.
I was like, that's it. I'm moving. I'm like, look at Nineveh, I'm like, we're not spending one more winter here. We're not. She's like, well, where do you want to live? I'm like, well, let's think about Scottsdale. I'm like, I got on Zillow and I started looking at homes for a certain price range. And she's like, oh my God, like that's not like too much more than where we were living in Utah.
Yeah.
And she was like, oh, we could have a pool, we could have this. And so she got kind of excited about it. And I had a realtor that I knew that was in Scottsdale, and I said, hey, can you like send me, homes in this price range or this price range in this area?
Yeah.
And she's like, yeah. And so she gave us this portal, and literally every night my wife would go through it and just like, John, you got to see this house. John, you got to see this house. I'm like, I know. And so she got like really excited about it.
Awesome.
And then one night she's like, John, how are we going to make this happen? And I'm like, I don't know, babe, but we're going to be in Scottsdale. I'm gonna make it a goal that we're in Scottsdale before Halloween. And she's like, how? Right? Her thing is how.
Yeah.
Well, if you know me and you know that I believe in the law of attraction, I'm like, I don't need to know how. I don't need to know how I made it to the NFL without playing high school football. I just need to know that it's there and it's going to happen.
Right.
Right? And that's like where me and her would clash a little bit. And so anyway, I told her, I'm like, babe, I'm at a high vibration right now. I don't know how yet, but it's going to happen. I swear, Yoshi, not even 2 weeks later. Well, if that was the end of April that we started this process, from that conversation, the very next week, it was a Wednesday.
Okay.
Nineveh comes, my office is downstairs. She comes running down, and someone knocked on the door, and we're like, who's at our door right now?
Oh my gosh.
And we both were working at home, and she's like, John, there's this realtor, she has a flyer. And she's like, there's this realtor, and he said that he had buyers that wanted a house in this neighborhood, but there's no inventory right now.
Wow.
And he said that he looked at the records and saw that we were trying to sell our house last year because we were going to move to Lehigh. And we had an offer on a house, but we couldn't sell our house. It was like the offer was not even close to what we wanted to sell or wanted to sell our house for, so we took it off the market.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, yeah, babe, like he's probably just like going through the MLS and trying to solicit, some clients.
Right.
I'm like, that probably happens all the time. And she's like, well, he says he has people that want to walk through the house tonight. And I'm like, well, okay, it's clean. Like, if he has people, like, I'm willing to show it. Yeah. So she's like, will you call him? I'm like, so I call him. And he's like, no, John, I'm serious. Like, these people have an offer on another house, but it's contingent on them finding a house. And there's literally no inventory where they want to live.
Wow.
And so he's like, this is a real possibility. And I'm like, okay, man, be here at 7 and we'll get out.
Yeah.
So they walk through the home, and a day later we have an offer.
Amazing.
On the house for exactly what we wanted out of the house. And so now we're faced with this. This was, again, May.
Yeah.
Nobody's really flying. Nobody knows what's going on or how they think about the virus really at this time.
Sure.
I'm like, we got to hop on a flight and go to Scottsdale because if we're going to move to Scottsdale, like this would be the time.
Yeah.
We're either going to take this offer or not. So we fly to Scottsdale. That was like a Thursday offer. We fly out on a Saturday. Parents watch little baby.
Yeah.
From Saturday to Monday, we go through like 40 homes, and we put an offer on the one I'm standing in right now.
Amazing.
And literally, we're in Scottsdale July 1st in our new home.
Amazing.
And yeah, dude, and I saw friends that like aren't on Facebook or whatever, and they'll text me like, "I had one yesterday. John, let's go grab coffee." I'm like, "Bro, dude, I'm in Scottsdale now." And they're like, "What? What do you mean? Like, how'd that happen?" Dude, it happened so fast, and like nobody was doing anything. There was no like goodbye party or anything. We're just like, dude, 4 weeks later we're out. Like, how did that happen?
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So dude, like, the goal thing and what my goals were, you know, like I had this goal of Scottsdale We're Here.
Uh-huh.
I had this goal of creating a spiritualized program that affects, you know, and impacts people, and that's here. For me now, it's like what, you know, and the question like, what do you really want? I've been kind of manifesting this stuff in my life really, really rapidly. And so I almost have to constantly put pen to paper on like, what is, like, now what? Like, now what do I want? And me and my wife were having this conversation yesterday, and it's like, now, you know, sometimes, you know, a person's like, well, I want $1 million, or I want this, and that's not powerful enough. You need to know why you want it.
Right.
Like,
right.
If the why and the desire isn't there, you know, the numbers in a bank account, like, it's not going to compel your unconscious to drive you to do things that you need to do.
Right.
And so now, dude, it's almost reset for me. Like, all this happened really fast. And it's like I have these goals to build a massive company, this athletic AF brand with, you know, all types of different tiers. But I really, really want to, in some way, impact education. And impact education at the high school or junior high level.
Got it.
Because adults, obviously we can transform and fix, but dude, our future's in the kids, man. And I want to teach some of this belief and intention and, you know, mixed with the right action and how to set goals, because all the stuff they're learning in school right now, you know, it's cool.
Yeah.
But, you know, how do we maximize a person's physicality and mentality and have them embody this? And if we could do that, especially when kids, you know, are struggling with social media and like being addicted to their phones and getting bullied, like how do I create this razor sharp mindset in kids to where they can be unfazed by some of that stuff? That's kind of like, I get chills thinking about that.
Yeah.
And again, like, how do I do that? I don't know.
Right.
But that's where I'm aiming this ship.
That is very cool. That is not only super cool, but gosh, I'm with you. I feel like that's super needed. I've got a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and my next door neighbor's got, you know, high school and a girl in college and a high school kid, and I guess that he's warning me. He's like, you know, that cyberbullying's a real thing. Once you get a bit older, I haven't experienced it yet, but I could see how training youth, you know, to keep that mindset strong would be so beneficial as they get older, because, you know, life does get a little bit more complicated when we have to go out on our own. As Urban Meyer told you, right? This may be the hardest thing you've experienced to date, but it will get harder. So
yes.
That is so cool. Okay, very cool. Wow, this is all such great stuff. John, if you could share, we've got a few minutes left, any tips with people out there who want to pursue their dream, whether it's to play college football or college sports or professional sports, or leave their 9-to-5 to start a business and become an entrepreneur, to be their own boss, whatever it may be. Do you have any tips that you could share with our listeners?
Oh man, so many. But I'm gonna try to narrow it down to like the two fundamental things that I think is most important for success. And the deeper I go and you know, studying quantum and different stuff, it's like I always come back to these two things.
Yeah.
It's like, if I just knew this, how much better or faster I could have created, right? And,
right.
Number one, very, very simple. Like, you have to know what you want. You literally have to know what you want. You have to know, you know, exactly what you want, not vaguely what you want. Like, what you want and why you want it is imperative.
Yes.
Right? And people, like I mentioned earlier, if you start asking them, well, what do you want? And they'll be like, well, I don't want this. I don't want to, you know, wake up and live with regret. I don't want to, you know, be 50 pounds overweight. Or I don't want this $5,000 debt. Like, you will never change if you constantly talk and speak about what you don't want.
Right.
So first and foremost, like if I'm coaching somebody who's struggling, and that language pattern, which is very powerful,
Yeah.
is constantly speaking about what they don't want,
Yeah.
they don't want their job, or they don't want their boss, or they don't want, they're in trouble until they start to refocus their language and pursue exactly what they want, because focus does expand, right? Your energy will attract what it focuses on. And so it's simple as me writing down Scottsdale home.
Right.
It gives coordinates to your unconscious to put the people and places and things in place to start directing you in that direction. And those little synchronicities that you feel are coincidences.
Right.
You can believe in coincidence or synchronicity or whatever, but I believe that when I'm focused on something, those things, you know, if I'm thinking about you and you text me at the same time, like that's not a coincidence. It's this attraction, it's this vibration that's out there, right? And that can get a little mystical, but you know, I've seen it happen too many times to turn my head at it.
Right.
So, quite simply, you know, whether it's high school kid or, you know, junior high kid or myself, that I did naturally, knowing what I wanted and focusing on it is the most powerful thing a person can do. So that's number one. And number two, being a master of your emotional state. Okay, being a master of your emotional state. So if you think about happiness or joy or bliss or anger or frustration or motivation or lack of motivation, right?
Yep.
The fundamental thing that I believe is the most contagious thing that a person, the most contagious thing out there is attitude or emotional state, far more contagious than a virus, right? You walk in and you're always surrounding yourself with negativity, you're going to feel negative.
Right.
I want to be the person who can influence motivation and impact, but in order for me to do that, I have to center that emotional state inside myself so I can transfer it to you.
Right. Yep.
Some people don't even know they're doing it. I talk to you and, you know, you laugh. I love it, bro. Like, it gives me, like, it just, you know, it's infectious.
Thank you.
Right?
Yes.
I want to be that infectious with, you know, what I do. If I need to sell someone in my program to change their life, I can't be frustrated on the phone. If I'm frustrated trying to sell deals, I'll never get the results I want. I need to be motivated within so that I can influence outside.
Right.
So, like, centering that emotional state and being very, very quick to understand if you are frustrated, right? And shortening that gap of anger or frustration or the negative emotions. I always say you can't create inspiring work in a frustrated state. So you can't solve your problems that you created in that negative emotional state by being in a negative emotional state. We have to be able to pattern interrupt that state and change it into the thing that's going to be able to solve the problems that are inevitably going to come up. So understanding just that alone, that, you know, if you're angry, it's not that you're angry, it's that you're practicing anger in the moment, just like an actor.
Got it. Yep.
Your posture, like, things can make you, you know, you're making yourself angry, not your spouse, and you're deciding to be angry for however long you want to be angry for.
Right.
And I started to realize that. It's like, I could just as easily choose not to be angry right now.
Right.
And my life would be so much better. And that's powerful, man. Like, nobody ever taught that in school.
That's
and
true.
So we were almost like leaves floating in the wind, just, you know, when we're angry, we're angry. When we're happy, we're happy. States are going to change, but if you can change your state on purpose, you can just cut through problems. And people think you're crazy, like, how is that guy happy all the time? Or how is that guy, you know, not that I'm never angry, I have short, it's like really short, right? I want to feel gratitude in my heart. I want to feel abundant in my heart.
Right.
Because when I do that, like, my outer world reflects that.
Oh, man, I love it. I love it. John, thank you so very much for sharing on my show today. Again, for those of you who are listening, you've got to find johnmatson.com. Is that correct? Is that your website?
Yeah.
Okay, johnmatson.com. Or John Matson Official on Instagram. And John Matson just on Facebook, right?
Yeah, John Matson on Facebook.
Okay. You've definitely got to go find John Matson on his social media. Follow him. His content that he shares is powerful, inspiring, and, in my personal opinion, valuable to anybody who has a goal that they want to pursue. You need to feed your brain, strengthen your brain like we strengthen our muscles. We need to strengthen our brain with positive information, and that's what I love about what you're doing, John, on social. I'm sure you're doing that in life in general, but I see it on social. So thank you so much again for sharing with everybody and for sharing on my show. You have no idea how much I appreciate you.
Dude, thank you, man. Thank you for having me, brother. I appreciate you and excited to, continue our relationship, even if it's, miles apart. I appreciate you, my brother.
Likewise. Well, if I can ever buy you Fleming's if you're in town, I know you're probably going to be super busy visiting Grandma and Grandpa with your daughter, so I'm probably not going to get that call. But if there's ever a day that you're like, I'm totally bored, give me a call. I'll take you to Fleming's.
Dude, I'll take you up, man. I'll never pass up food.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, John, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Everybody, you've been listening to K-Talk Radio 1640 AM, the show Utah Home Sweet Home. I am your host, Yoshi Shiraki. John Manson, thank you again. I really appreciate you so much.
Absolutely, buddy. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon. I hope everybody has a spectacular rest of the weekend. Okay, before we part ways, in case you have a dog or know someone else who does have a dog, I wanted to take a quick second to show you the Snap Leash. The Snap Leash can literally do so many things, and I'm going to share with you one of the many cool things that it can do. As you can see, the Snap Leash is designed with 2 swivel hooks, one on each end. This end has a cushion stitched into it to make it comfortable when walking your dog. Now, all you have to do is take this swivel hook, put it into this very first grommet, and now you've got your handle. Okay, so now let's imagine you're at the park and you want to secure your pet quickly, safely, and easily to a park bench, a tree, or a pole because you just want to sit down and relax. Well, all you need to do is take this swivel hook, remove it from the very first grommet, wrap this leash around any size tree or pole or park bench, and put it into the appropriate grommet. And now you have secured your pet quickly, safely, and easily. And when it's time to head home, another great feature about the Snap Leash is you can simply wrap it around your waist for hands-free walking. Lastly, if you ever accidentally forget your waist bags at home, these grommets make a great place to fasten the waist bags so you never leave home without them. And if you want to see all of the other cool things that the Snap Leash can do, then please just click on the link below and find out why so many others are falling in love with the Snap Leash.